It seems as though I had to break it up into two parts due to my technological ineptitude. So we will now start the Battle of Khaybar. The Battle of Khaybar was an armed confrontation between the early Muslims and the Jewish community of Khaybar. Well, that's what they wrote, so I had to say it. In 628 CE, Khaybar, which is located approximately 150 kilometers or 93 miles to the northwest of Medina, was home to a sizable community of Jewish tribes. Is that J word again? Now, these were called the Khaybar Jews. They were supported by the Banu Nadir and other tribes called the Banu Ghatafan, who were the Arabs, and the Banu Fazara, who were also Arabs. You know, they made alliances. They made alliances, military alliances with the Arabs. The Yahud did that. As Muhammad's army began to march on Khaybar, the Banu Ghatafan and other Jewish allied Arabian tribes did not or could not send the reinforcements that had been expected to arrive to defend the settlement, further endangering the Jewish army's poor fortifications. After a brief period of fighting, Khaybar fell to the Muslims, and the Jewish commander, whose name was Marhab ibn al-Harith, was killed, reportedly by Ali ibn Abi Talib. The terms of surrender presented to the oasis after the Muslim conquest stipulated the seizure of the Jews' wealth and also called for every non-Muslim to pay the jizya to the Muslims. You know, that's the tax, the tribute, in exchange for universal conflict neutrality with protection or to immigrate from Khaybar, bolstering the Muslim army in a significant development for Muhammad's military career. In exchange for their acceptance of the terms, the Muslims agreed to cease their campaign against Banu Qurayza and other local tribes. Despite forces consisting of 10 to 20,000 Jews versus 1,400 Muslims, deaths were remarkably low at 93 Jews and 18 Muslims, with 50 injured between the parties. Since the late 20th century, Muhammad's conquest of Khaybar's Jewish community has become notable as the subject of an Arabic language rallying slogan. Khaybar, Khaybar, Ya Yahud, in the context of the Arab-Israeli conflict. Khaybar, Khaybar, Ya Yahud, trying to remind them of what happened to them. Also, Prophet Muhammad said, Kharabat Khaybar, Kharabat Khandaq. In other words, these were losses for the Yahud. So we would be wise to try to recollect that the Muslims did win these battles. Well, what's wrong now? What is happening now in Gaza? Well, I think we need strong Muslims. Doesn't take a lot, you know, it only takes a few. So I am no military strategist, and I am no expert on anything having to do with fighting, especially with swords and real killing fighting, etc. It's something that I don't feel that I that I want to even think about, because it's bloody and people die and young men die. But look at what we're already seeing now in Gaza. We're seeing babies die. They're still digging through the rubble. They're still being slaughtered, starved, no food, no water. So that's why I came to the conclusion that I wanted to do this this evening, just to put a reminder that there was once a time when the Muslims rushed into battle bravely. Why? Because they had husn at-tawakkul. That means they depended solely on Allah. They had no fear of death. And you know, Prophet Muhammad in a hadith has already said that in the end of time, countries will gather around the Muslim Ummah like dogs gathering around a dish of food, and they will devour it. Yes, hadith from Prophet Muhammad. And when asked why, what was wrong? What, were they so weak? Were they so few? Prophet Muhammad said, no, they will be many, but they will have wahan. And Prophet Muhammad was asked, what does it mean, wahan? And Prophet Muhammad said it means love of this world and hatred for death. Now there is another story that took place back in the days of the brave Sahaba, where, I'm sorry, I should have this on the tip of my tongue, but it wasn't planned to be included. But anyway, they said, those fighters said, trying to scare the enemy and just saying right to their face, we love death the way you love life. You think being a shaheed bothers us? It's something that they love, because they know that the shuhada, when they die, they go straight up and stay up in the paradise, being cared for by their Lord. And this is in Quran, many verses regarding this. So everyone is on edge, everyone is anxious, everyone is confused right now. People are in dread because it's still going on. It's been over a year, it's still going on. So therefore, we want to reflect on something. I hope it's going to be something a little bit more positive. Now, in this regard, Surah Ahzab would be perhaps the one surah that I could read from, but I don't want to read from that one. I want to read from Surah Al-Anfal. And there's a story behind this Surah Al-Anfal with me. It was when I was a very new Muslim and I had my Quran teacher. It's kind of like private lessons in the beginning, you know. And she said, we're going to do the back, you know, the Juz al-Amma, but we'll only do because I had already done the little ones for prayer, you know, the 2 Quds and Surah Ikhlas. I had already done those. So she said, I'll let you choose to do whatever you want to do. What do you want to do? And I said, I want to do Baqarah. Baqarah? You want to memorize Baqarah? That's so long. It's maybe a little bit too much for you. I said, well, I'd like to try some. You know, I'll do a few pages. So I did a few pages. I guess it was maybe at that time 6-7 pages. And then I said, I think I want to do Surah Anfal. And she was surprised. She said, what would make you choose Surah Anfal? That's kind of an unlikely choice. And I said, I was reading the translation in English, and I liked the meaning of it. She said, oh, what made you like the meaning of it? And I said, because in the beginning when I'm reading it, of course it's all in English now, remember. I said, I liked the way that Allah gave advice right in the very beginning of what Muslims should be like and what they should do. And she was smiling and she was amazed and she said, well, that's true. Let's start it and let's do it. Well, she and I, we only did perhaps 5 pages. And then I jumped again to another surah because I was so new and so green, as we say. She wisely would let me do whatever I wanted. She didn't put any pressure on me to follow a specific manhaj because she was Fatima. She was the expert Quran teacher for her whole life. She's still doing it in Dubai, and she's 60. And she is a Quran teacher. So I always reference her and say, MashaAllah, Allahu Akbar. Allah knows his people. You know, he's Malik al-Mulk, and we are part of that. We're his property. And so he knows who's going to benefit whom, how, when, where, and why. So I'd like to close this little 2-part series with a page from Surah Anfal. Anfal means war booty. What people get when they fight, well, men, when they fight battles, in Islam, they get a portion of the spoils of war, is how it's translated in English. And that's what this first page is about. But I'm going to pause. I'm not going to just stop and read the translation after the first page. I'm going to pause because I remember those days, and it was 30 years ago when I was doing this, and how much these words affected me. Surah Anfal. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يسألونك عن الأنفال قل الأنفال لله ورسول فاتقوا الله وأصلحوا ذات بينكم وأطيعوا الله ورسوله إن كنتم مؤمنين إنما المؤمنون الذين إذا ذكر الله وجلت قلوبهم وإذا تليت عليهم آياته زادتهم إيمانا وعلى ربهم يتوكلون. So these are the first 2 verses, which I will translate. They ask you about the spoils of war. Say to them, the spoils of war for Allah and His Messenger. So be pious, fear Allah, obey Allah, and then aslihu dhata bainikum, fix the affairs between you, and obey Allah and His Messenger if you are believers. And then I remember this. Truly the believers are those whom when Allah's name is mentioned, their hearts tremble. Wajilat qulubuhum. It means their hearts literally move. They're affected. These are the believers. They are affected. And the tuliyat alayhim ayatu, and when the verses of Quran are recited for them, they increase in faith. Zadathum imana wa ala rabbihim yatawakkalun, and they depend on their Lord. Yatawakkalun, tawakkul, husna tawakkul. You depend only on Allah and not on any human. Ulaika humul mu'minuna haqqa lahum darajatun inda rabbihim wa maghfiratun wa rizqun kareem. Those are they who are true believers. Mu'minuna haqqan. And they will have high levels with their Lord, and forgiveness, and a generous bounty. Rizqun kareem. That's the first half of the page. I will now do the last half. كما أخرجك ربك من بيتك بالحق وَإِنَّ فَرِيقًا مِّنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ لَكَارِهُونَ. As Allah brought you out, your Lord, from your home in truth, although a portion of the believers hated it. يُجَادِلُونَكَ فِي الْحَقِّ بَعْدَمَا تَبَيَّنَ كَأَنَّهُمْ يُسَاقُونَ إِلَى الْمَوْتِ وَهُمْ يَنْظُرُونَ. They would dispute with you over the truth after it had been given. بَعْدَمَا تَبَيَّنَ, given clearly. كَأَنَّهُمْ يُسَاقُونَ إِلَى الْمَوْتِ, as though they are driving themselves to death. وَهُمْ يَنْظُرُونَ, and they're watching it. وَإِذْ يَعِدُكُمُ اللَّهُ إِحْدَى طَائِفَتَيْنِ أَنَّهَا لَكُمْ وَتُوَدُّونَ أَنَّ غَيْرَ ذَاتِ شَوْكَةٍ تَكُونُ لَكُمْ وَيُرِيدُ اللَّهُ أَنْ يُحِقَّ الْحَقَّ بِكَلِمَاتِهِ وَيَقْطَعَ دَابِرَ الْكَافِرِينَ. Allah is telling us here that you preferred a certain type of people to follow you, to be with you. That's what you wanted. However, Allah caused something different to happen, to give you another group. And then Allah says in the Quran, in His words, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ, you see Allah is speaking about Himself here, أَنْ يُحِقَّ الْحَقَّ, to bring forward the truth, بِكَلِمَاتِهِ. And this is what, I think that's what struck me and still strikes me more than anything with the Arabic language. Allah wants to verify and put forth clearly the truth by His words. بِكَلِمَاتِهِ. You see, there's a singular pronoun there. It doesn't say بِكَلِمَاتِهُمْ, which would be the plural pronoun. No, by His words alone, Allah will bring forward the truth and وَيَقْطَعَ دَابِرَ الْكَافِرِينَ, and He will then cut the dabir. The dabir means your backs, the backsides of the kafirin. He will cut their backsides. In other words, they'll be cut off from you if you're sincere. Why? لِيُحِقَّ الْحَقَّ وَيَبْطِلَ الْبَاطِلَ, to bring forward the truth and destroy the untruth, الباطل. وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُجْرِمُونَ, even though the criminals will hate it. So now this is all in the mudari'. This is all in the present tense. يُحِقَّ الْحَقَّ, now and forever. Mudari', present and future. Allah will make the truth clear by His words. And يَقْطَعَ دَابِرَ الْكَافِرِينَ, present tense, future tense. He will cut off the criminals, the liars. And there are a lot of them now. Oh, are they coming out of the masajid? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. They're called munafiq. Allah hates those who say what they do not do. And He promises them the lowest depths of the hellfire. So it was a little bit of a different lesson this evening, and there was a reason why I did this like this. So I'll probably do some more of this type of thing tomorrow, so that we can somehow become actively involved in what's going on in Gaza. Free Palestine. Ameen.